Hello and welcome to another Birdie Precision technical session. And this series of videos is on CCT as an introduction. Today's topic is tool overview. My name is Frank Witmer with Birdie Precision. And let's take a look at CCT. CCT stands for Controller Configuration Tool. The current version is version 13.1. and it's used to program the FX line of controllers and also the Metasys line of controllers as well. The tool itself requires a license to run. The previous version of PCT did not have any type of license that would keep the software from running or not. And with CCT, you must have a license purchased and set up on your computer in order for it to run. The CCT tool is compatible with the Metasys Legacy MSTP controllers, specifically their FEC, FAC, VMA controller line, and also the Facility Explorer Legacy MSTP controllers, the PCA, PCG, PCV, the PCX expansion controllers. And it's compatible with the FX new MSTP controllers, their F4 series, as well as the IP controllers. With the new series of controllers, it's not compatible. We cannot use the Metasys controllers with that, and that's all part of the licensing and how that works. And with that, the tool has two release modes. There's a 10.2 mode and there's a 10.4 mode. The 10.2 mode is used to program and work with the legacy controllers, meaning the FX legacy, PCA, PCG, PCB type controllers. And also with CCT 10.2 mode, it will allow you to work with the Metasys legacy MSTP controllers as well. That's something you couldn't do with PCT. You had to have the Metasys version of CCT, the older version, to run Metasys product, and you needed the PCT tool for the FX product. So with CCT 13 running 10.2, you can work with the Metasys controllers or the FX controllers. The other mode that can be run on this tool is 10.4, and this is used with the F4 series MSTP controllers, which are the new CPG or the new CGM, CVM line of controllers, and they can run MSTP or N2. And also the IP controllers are supported in this version as well. With these modes, and you'll see a little screenshot here showing how you switch between 10.2 and 10.4. As I mentioned, the 10.2 mode, you can do the FX PC series controllers, MSTP or N2, where in the 10.4 mode, that mode is used specifically for the F4 series, the CGM, CVM controllers, as well as the PCA, PCV IP-based controllers, the BACnet IP controllers. If you're working with a 10.2 application, you can actually take that application and upgrade it to 10.4 if you'd like. So if you're working with a MSTP or N2 version using 10.2 mode, and you want to replace those with an IP-based controller, you could do that by upgrading the application to 10.4. However, if you're working and you accidentally, or whatever the circumstances are, you started a 10.4 application, had it all built out, then you realize, oh, I don't want to use the F4 or the IP-based controllers. You wanted to use the 10.2 type. You can't downgrade from a 10.4 application to a 10.2. So basically, you have to start over or use the new style MSTP, the F4s, or the IP controllers. I just want to make note of that so that you understand that you can go from 10.2 to 10.4, but not from 10.4 to 10.2. In the tool, and we'll get into the different parts of the screen and the parts of the tools, There's three modes of operation for your application, and there is a configure, a simulate, and a commission mode. The configure mode is what you're going to use to create your application or modify your application. Simulate is, as it suggests, will allow you to simulate your application as if it's running in a live controller, basically like you would in a commission mode. And then that third mode, commission, will allow you to actually work with a live controller and see your application with live data to allow you to view it, test, and also modify the parameters live in the controller. So there are the three modes that you can work with within the tool. Then there's three different types of operations you do in your application. The first being select system. This is the system selection wizard when you first create an application, where you go in and tell it the type of application and then what the different features are you want for it, and then the application gets built for you. The define hardware is the section where you would do your hardware settings. You choose what controller you want, if you need any additional expansion modules, network sensors, if you're doing, you want to change anything about those, and then also if you want to do anything with the display is set up there as well for the addressing. You have I/O assignment, so your points, your physical points, get assigned in there for which terminal pairs that get used on the controller. You got your network settings for your controllers is done there, and if you select an N2 option for your application, you would do your N2 mapping from there as well. And then the third piece of that is the side loop, which allows you to use the same type of a system selection wizard for creating a side loop, which is basically to create additional control loops in your application. And if we go across and look at the toolbar, we have tools and transfer are two of the areas on the menu bar. Under tools, you have box flow test, and that's where you're able to test a VAV application, to test the actuator and the airflow to go along with that. There's a wireless section for doing your wireless configuration and settings. Trunk utilities is what's used if you want to do mass upload and download of your application to multiple controllers. If you want to do a mass write or read of your attributes, which would be, say, for a VAV box, your balancing information, your min-max flow settings, your K factor, your box size, all those things. So you can build a table or a template with all that information and have it go out to each controller, so that you only need one application for multiple controllers. It's just the settings that are different, the set points. Online operations is a way to go in and look at your controller information. It's also the place when you're working with the newer F4 controllers to enable and disable your logic. That can all be done from there. Job information is just a information section where you can put project information, have your project details captured there, job number, description, that kind of thing. And if we move over to the transfer section, transfer is where you would go to do your upload or download of a controller. So transfer to device would be your download, and transfer to computer is your upload. One of the nice things about CCT and the FX series controllers, if you don't have the application on the controller you're trying to work with, it will allow you to transfer the information back to your computer, and you have the full application to work with, not just a compiled version of it or something like that. You get the full application back in CCT. And then here, this is just a big, basically, listing of the different colors and the icons that are used within CCT. This is just a good reference table for all that information. The status colors based on if you're in commissioning mode or simulate or configure mode, the colors mean different things. Like the tan is showing you that there's actual logic that you can get to, which would be on the logic tab in your application. The white areas this is when you're in the configure mode too. The white area means that the logic that's there is cannot be viewed. It's something internal to Johnson Controls that we're unable to see and work with. Then there's other colors depending on the points are updating or in alarm, things like that. Then you'll see you have these icons on here. Like if we look at this, it's a zone set point. So this is a network sensor, and that's a little network sensor icon, which is described over here. So I've captured all that information on this slide for reference for you as you work through this. And then this layout here is of the CCT tool in general. And basically, we already went through the menu bar pieces. The mode button bar, we already talked about: configure, simulate, commission. The operation buttons for, select system, define hardware, side loop. And then the screen is broken out into two sections. You have your application panel, which is the upper part, and your features panel, which is your lower part. Under the application panel, you have your control tab and your logic tab. The control tab is showing you all your inputs. So left to right, your inputs are your first column, outputs are your rightmost column. Network inputs, and then you have your inputs, and then you have basically these are feedback miscellaneous points that are pulled from the actual outputs of the controller. And then on the output side, you have your network outputs, and then you have your physical outputs here. And again, these are feedback type of points pulling from the controller. Then you have your set point miscellaneous column, your state generation column, and your output control column. And these are different modules that you're working with that make up the application. The logic tab is used where any of these tan areas, you can go in and look at the logic and see how it's programmed, or you can create custom logic and be able to write your own applications just using a wire sheet type of view. If we move down to the features panel, down here you'll see you got parameters, which are basically a listing of all the parameters used in the application. The connections, as shown here, you have, it'll show depending on which module at the top you have selected, you'll see what the inputs are and the outputs, what the outputs are, and then what's connected to the inputs and what's connected to the outputs. So the connections tab is a very important tab, and it's something you'll refer to quite a bit working with CCT. Your state tables is going to list all your state table settings and allow you to see when you're in commission to see what the modes are that are being used and how it affects each of the modules in your application. The display tab will allow you to create the local display menus with points that you want to display. If you don't do anything, you have no points that will show up in a display. So you need to make sure you put information in there if you're going to have a display. And also it's used on the map gateway, so you can have your display and your menuing show up there as well by populating this display. And basically this is a review of what I was talking about with the bottom part, where when you're in your connections, you'll see inputs are yellow, outputs are cyan. So when you're working in your logic, you're going to find there that you're going to have these activity inputs and outputs, which basically represent the yellow and the blue or cyan colored slots of this connections table. As I said, your state table, you'll be able to view and edit the tables here. When you're in the commission mode, it really is helpful, and you can see exactly what modes your application's running in. And in display, as I said, it's for configuring your local display. So now that we got through all of the bits and pieces and got through that slide deck, which I had created to be a good lookup document for you as you're working with the tool. But here we have CCT version 13.1. We can go in, change our release mode. I'll go back to release mode 10.2 for the standard legacy controllers, the PCA, PCG, PCP controllers. And it just takes a few seconds or a minute, or I wouldn't even say a minute or two, but it takes a little bit to change that release mode. Once it's done, we're going to see that up in the left-hand corner, and then down in the lower right-hand corner, we're also going to see down there it changed to 10.2, and it's showing you the firmware that's set up for it. So from here, we could go in. Let's say we have a new application. Let's do this time. We'll do a VAV AHU. Might as well start big. So we got air handling unit. We'll do a mixed air single duct. We'll say OK. From there, we will get our selection wizard. Let me open this back up so we can see what's going on. So from here, what we're going to do is basically select the operation of our system. We're programming the controller at this point. We can say we have variable speed fan. Okay, we want fan status. I mean, if you had a fan array, you can go up to 16 fans that it'll configure for you. We're not going to go crazy. But we are going to go ahead and say we have a return fan, variable speed, and we'll track the supply fan. And let's move down further. No exhaust fan. We'll say, okay, we have an economizer. Coils. There's preheat coil. We're not going to bother with the preheat coil. But we'll have a cooling coil, but let's say we actually are staged. So we have 4 stages of cooling. You could do chill water if we wanted. So you can, it's very versatile on what you can select. Reheat, we say we have a reheat valve. We'll say we have hot water reheat. And we'll say, okay, we're going to protect the coil. We want a coil pump. And we're using it as a low temperature circulation. So that's the application that it's going to choose, the modules and the features of the application when we get through this. If we want dehumidification or humidification, we can do that. If we choose, we can pick N2 compatibility, and you can see that it will replace the applications of an AHU, a UNT, or a DX9100 if you were to choose that. You go next, and you have your miscellaneous points that you can add to this application, and you'll see discharge temperature isn't 1 because that's actually already selected based on what we chose on the previous screen. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and say finish. And now the application is actually going to be built for us. It does take a few seconds for it to build it, but it will be complete. So, okay, if we bring it back over here, it decided to throw it on my other screen, so we'll make this big again. So now I have my application is in here. Since I'm on a different size screen, I have to go back and reset the layout, so now it shows better. So now we can see what we have here. We have our inputs. You'll see we got discharge air temp, and you'll see that it's set up for nickel 1K. If you wanted to change that, you could. Your network input points, you have your physical output points. We could go in and we could look at logic. If you wanted to go in here and look at any of the logic, it takes you through all that. We could go back if we wanted to change something about the application. We could always go back to the select system. Keep in mind, if you made any custom changes here, if you go back to the select system and you turn around and say finish, it's going to wipe out any of your custom work. So be careful on that. Make backups, do saves, and save as just to save and preserve some of the changes in case you have to go back to them. One thing to note is you'll see in the bottom left corner, not assigned in red. That means we haven't selected a controller. So what we'd have to do is come back up here to define hardware, and we want to define a controller or select a controller that we're going to use. And you'll see with this that it currently, it's selected an FEC. We're not going to work with that. We're going to do a PCG. So let's say that controller. And you'll see where we are shy of 2 points. So if that's the case, it didn't pick the one. Oh, sorry. There's another screen. So we go back here. It'll select the right controller. Okay, we're still shy to 2 binary outputs. So we could go in and select a expansion device if we want. We need 2 binary outputs. So I could come down here and we'll just select this one. Say okay. Oh. Again, comes over here. We only want 1. We'll say okay. It'll update, and now we have plenty of I/O available. Point assignments. If we look there, you'll see that it will have auto-assigned all our points. You'll see like discharge temp is on it. Universal input 1. Description gives you all the information, how your points are set up. Network settings, you got your device address or your MAC address. You got your instance number for that controller. You have the SA bus address for the expansion module, the local display. If you had N2, you could do your mapping there. We don't, so we'll leave it at this. once we get through that, you'll see that it did select the controller for us and it's in green. So everything's fine there. So at this point, we would be able to come through and, well, we can look at connections, we got state tables, everything's here for that application. Display, if we wanted to, we'd have to add points for that. That's a future video. We'll go through logic on a future video. So at this point, what we could actually do is you'd be able to come through, do a transfer to device, do a download, and then you could go from there to commission. In our case here, before we want to download, we would want to turn around and do a simulate. So you could go in there, do a simulate, and then allow you to go through and test your application while it's running in your computer. And while it's doing that, you can actually simulate it up to 10 times real-time speed. You can set your points, your physical points, and your network points to start at a certain value, and then when you start simulation, it's going to go through and actually be running, and you can override points and watch how your outputs are functioning based on that. So that's pretty much a quick overview of CCT. And again, it's the first of, we'll have more to come on some of the different pieces of the application. And that's it for today. Thank you for your time.